The freeze frame captures everything. Marcus Elijah Cole, 51 years old, standing in the center of Sterling Dynamics' main conference hall with his hands behind his back. Security guards on either side, their fingers wrapped around his arms. 300 employees pressed against the glass walls, phones raised recording. The live stream counter in the corner of the projection screen shows 4.2 million viewers. Behind Marcus, the marine engine runs, smooth, perfect, the kind of harmonic rhythm that comes when every system speaks the same language. 12 minutes and 4 seconds without shutdown. 67 previous tests had failed at 11 minutes 47 seconds. Every single one. Diana Sterling stands 10 feet away, charcoal suit hair pulled back tight enough to hurt, face twisted with rage that makes her look 10 years older than 54. Her finger points at Marcus like a weapon. Corporate espionage. He broke into my office at 6:47 this morning. The security footage plays on 3 massive screens. Marcus entering Diana's office, Marcus opening her desk drawer, Marcus accessing her private server. The timestamp glows in the corner, 6:47 a.m. A teenage boy breaks through the crowd. 16 years old, tall basketball player's build, wearing a Michigan State hoodie. Isaiah Benjamin Cole, Marcus's son. His voice cracks when he shouts, "Let go of my dad. He didn't do anything wrong." The image freezes. Marcus's face fills the screen. Calm, not defiant, not broken, just present. The kind of calm that comes from having already lost everything that mattered and discovering you're still standing. Text appears across the frozen image 8 hours earlier. 11:00 p.m. the breaking point. The maintenance cart's left wheel squeaked. Marcus had meant to fix it for 3 months, never found the time, never found the energy. Never found the part of himself that used to care about details like squeaking wheels. Because details were what separated good mechanics from great ones. 11 o'clock at night, the 38th floor of Sterling Dynamics headquarters stretched empty in both directions. Polished concrete floors reflected fluorescent lights that hummed with the frequency of cheap ballast. The kind of hum most people stopped hearing after the first week. Marcus had been hearing it for 3 years. You didn't stop hearing things just because they became familiar. You just learned to carry them. His navy blue uniform hung loose on a frame that had lost 20 pounds since Nia died. The Sterling Dynamics patch over his breast pocket was faded from 3 years of weekly washing. His name tag said, "Maintenance" in block letters. No name, just function. He pushed the cart past the R&D lab's glass walls. Inside, the marine engine sat on its test platform like a sleeping animal. $3.8 million of German engineering trying to speak to American software. It had been failing that conversation for 9 weeks. 67 attempts, 67 failures at exactly 11 minutes and 47 seconds. Marcus had been listening to this engine die for 2 weeks. Every night, when he mopped the floor outside the lab, when he emptied the trash cans, when he wiped down the whiteboards covered in equations the MIT engineers wrote and erased and wrote again. He heard it. The stutter at 2400 RPM. The hesitation every 3 seconds. The desperate fighting rhythm of a machine that knew something was wrong, but didn't have the language to explain what. His phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number, but Marcus knew the pattern. Collection agency. 3rd one this week. Final notice. Account number 7429. Balance $127,843.29. Payment required within 72 hours to avoid legal action. He deleted it without reading past the balance. What could they take that hadn't already been taken? The apartment was rented. The Civic was 15 years old and worth maybe $1,200. Everything else had been sold 3 years ago to buy Nia 8 more months. 8 months that hadn't been enough but had been everything they had left. The cart stopped outside the executive elevator. Marcus pulled out his key card, swiped it. The reader beeped green. Maintenance had access everywhere. Had to for cleaning executive bathrooms at midnight when the important people were sleeping in houses that cost more than Marcus would earn in 30 years. The elevator rose. Marcus watched the numbers climb. His reflection in the polished steel doors showed a man who looked older than 51, gray at the temples, lines around the eyes. The kind of tired that sleep didn't fix because it wasn't about rest. It was about carrying weight that never got lighter, just more familiar. 38th floor. The doors opened. Diana Sterling stood in the hallway. Marcus's first instinct was correct. Apologize, disappear, return to invisibility. That was survival. That was the deal he'd made with himself 3 years ago when the world stopped making sense and started being something you just endured. I'm sorry, Ms. Sterling. I'll come back later. She didn't move. Designer heels on concrete, each step precise, calculated, the sound of power that didn't need to be loud to be absolute. I asked you a question, Janitor. Marcus hadn't heard a question. His hands tightened on the cart handle. The metal was cold, real, the kind of detail his mind grabbed onto when the rest of the world started feeling like quicksand. I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear. Security keeps reporting that you spend extra time near my workshop, that you stop outside the door and listen. 3 years of careful invisibility threatened by curiosity and an engine that wouldn't stop calling to him. I wasn't trying to... Don't lie to me. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume, something expensive that probably had a French name. Her eyes were the kind of cold that came from years of fighting battles where mercy meant defeat. I own this building. I own every camera in this building. I've watched you, Marcus Cole, every night for 2 weeks, standing outside that door like some kind of creep. The hallway filled with footsteps. Graham Foster appeared behind Diana, lead engineer, 38-years-old MIT graduate, the kind of man who'd never pushed a mop in his life but had opinions about people who did. He looked uncomfortable, sympathetic even, but too weak to intervene. Diana, maybe we should... Her voice cracked like a whip. Shut up, Graham. She never took her eyes off Marcus. The cameras would show this moment. Tomorrow everyone would know about the custodian who'd overstepped, who'd gotten too curious, who'd been made an example of the way Diana made examples of everyone who forgot their place. Marcus swallowed against the weight of 3 years' silence. His father's voice echoed in memory. Samuel Cole, dead, 11 years, speaking from a garage that no longer existed. Some battles you walk away from, son. Some battles walk toward you. This battle had found him. The words came out before he could stop them, before the part of his brain that had kept him safe could override the part that still remembered who he used to be. The engine. I can hear what's wrong with it. Diana blinked. Once. Twice. Processing information that didn't fit her understanding of the world. What? The marine engine. The one your team's been working on for 9 weeks. I can hear the problem. Silence stretched between them like a rope pulled too tight. Then Diana laughed. Not polite, not nervous. A cruel sound that echoed through the empty hallway and made Graham look at the floor. You can hear it. She wiped her eyes with theatrical exaggeration. Oh, this is precious. This is absolutely precious. She pulled out her phone. Her thumbs moved fast, precise. Graham, wake everyone up. Board members, engineers, the investors at the Ritz, everyone. I want them here in 1 hour. Graham's face went pale. Diana, it's 11 at night. I don't care if it's 3 in the goddamn morning. Our janitor thinks he's an engineer. I want the whole world to watch what happens next. Marcus's internal monologue screamed at him. This was the moment to backtrack, to apologize, to retreat into invisibility and hope she forgot about him in a week. The safe play, the survival strategy. But Nia's voice was louder. 3 years dead and still the loudest thing in his head. Promise me you won't give up. Promise me you'll remember who you are. Promise me you'll find your way back. He'd kept the first 2 promises, hadn't given up even when giving up would have been easier, had remembered who he was even when the world forgot, but he'd never found his way back. Not until now. Not until this moment when Diana Sterling forced a choice between continued invisibility and a gamble that might destroy him. Marcus met her eyes, saw the certainty there, the absolute conviction that he would fail, that a man who mopped floors couldn't possibly understand engineering at the level required to solve problems MIT graduates had missed. She'd underestimated him the way everyone had underestimated his father, the way the world underestimated anyone without the right credentials, the right background, the right pedigree. Marcus's voice came out quiet, steady, final. "Start the clock." Diana's smile flickered. She'd expected begging, excuses, maybe tears, the kind of collapse that would entertain her audience and reinforce her dominance. Not this. Not quiet defiance from a man who should have been broken 3 years ago. The gathering storm. The conference hall filled within 40 minutes. 300 employees, most in pajamas under winter coats, rubbing sleep from their eyes. They sensed blood in the water. Sensed the kind of spectacle Diana Sterling orchestrated when she wanted to remind everyone who held power. Marcus stood at the front of the room, his hands at his sides, waiting. Diana took the stage, walked toward Marcus with theatrical precision. When she was close enough to touch, she reached down and snatched the mop from his hands. The crack echoed across the 38th floor. She'd broken the wooden handle over her knee. Splinters scattered across polished granite like shrapnel. 300 employees watched through glass walls, their phones raised recording. "You can't even hold a mop without my permission." Her breath touched Marcus's face when she leaned close, each word precise as a scalpel cut. "You think you can fix my $3.8 million engine? You can't even hold a mop." She threw the broken pieces at his feet. Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch. His hands stayed at his sides while Diana's smile sharpened into something predatory. 2 hours. Fix what MIT couldn't fix in 9 weeks, in front of everyone, in front of my investors, in front of the whole goddamn world. Her fingers snapped inches from his eyes. "When you fail, and you will fail, I'll destroy you. Not just fire you, destroy you completely. Your name will be poison in every engineering firm from here to California." She paused. "Let the threat sink in. And your son's scholarship to Michigan State, the full ride he's been counting on." Marcus's jaw tightened, first emotion shown. One phone call to the athletic director about his father's corporate espionage investigation and it disappears. The performance had been for the cameras, for the phones already recording, for the live stream that Graham was setting up at Diana's instruction. Within minutes, #Sterling Challenge was trending. 50,000 viewers in the first 2 minutes. People loved watching failure, loved watching someone reach beyond their station and fall. Marcus looked down at the broken mop. Then he looked at Diana Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, the woman who'd made 3 years of his life invisible. "Start the clock." The words came out quiet, certain, final. Diana's confidence flickered. She'd expected begging tears, a man crumbling under pressure he couldn't possibly handle. Not this calm defiance that made the air shift, made 300 people lean forward, made something impossible suddenly feel inevitable. His phone buzzed. Text message. Isaiah. "Dad, what's happening? You're trending on Twitter, are you okay?" Marcus typed back with thumbs that wanted to shake but didn't. "I'm fine. Go back to sleep." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I'm coming." Marcus's chest tightened. "No. Stay home. Please." But the dots had stopped. Isaiah had already left, 16 years old and too much like his mother. Nia had never backed down from anything either. Not from cancer, not from insurance companies, not from the universe itself when it decided 48 was old enough to die. The Japanese delegation arrived in black sedans. Harrison Blackwell stepped out first. 70 years old, $4 billion, Tennessee. Old money that had survived 3 generations. He moved like a man who'd been lied to for 9 weeks about engine problems that should have been solved in 9 days. His patience wasn't infinite. It was just professionally maintained. Next to him walked Dr. Eleanor Thorne, 60 years old, former Boeing chief engineer, 47 patents, the woman who designed guidance systems for spacecraft and power plants for submarines. When Dr. Thorne watched you work, you were either being recruited or executed. There was no middle ground. Marcus had seen her twice before, once in the hallway 3 months ago, once in the parking lot 6 weeks back. Both times she'd looked at him the way people look through windows. Present but not registered, janitors were part of the scenery. Diana took the stage like a ringmaster introducing the main event. Her voice carried that particular tone of someone who'd already won and was simply enjoying the victory parade. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the hour, but tonight we're going to witness something special. She gestured toward Marcus with theatrical flourish. This is Marcus Cole. For 3 years, he's cleaned our toilets and emptied our trash cans. Tonight, he informed me that a janitor with no degree, no credentials, no qualifications whatsoever can repair the engine that our MIT and Harvard engineers couldn't fix in 9 weeks. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus watched Diana work the room. She was good at this, had probably practiced in the mirror. She walked toward Marcus slowly, deliberately, a predator circling wounded prey. So I'm giving him a chance. 2 hours, in front of all of you, in front of Mr. Blackwell, whose patience we've tested far too long, in front of the entire world watching online. She stopped inches from his face, close enough that Marcus could count the micro-expressions flickering across her features. Confidence, contempt, curiosity about how he would break. Fix the engine, janitor. Fix it and I'll make you workshop manager, 6-figure salary, benefits, everything you've never earned. Her voice dropped to a whisper that the microphone still caught. But when you fail, and we both know you'll fail, I won't just fire you. I'll make sure you never work with engines again. Not here, not anywhere, not even changing oil at a Jiffy Lube in the middle of nowhere. She snapped her fingers inches from his eyes, the sound sharp enough to make half the room flinch. Marcus looked at the broken mop at his feet. 3 years ago, he'd held a different broken thing. Nia's hand, her pulse fading, her voice barely a whisper. Promise me you won't give up. He'd promised. Promise me you'll remember who you are. He'd promised that too. Promise me you'll find your way back. That promise hurt the most, because Marcus didn't know if he could keep it. How do you find your way back when the path only leads to empty apartments and midnight shifts and the ghost of who you used to be? But standing in this conference hall with Diana Sterling 3 inches from his face and 300 people waiting for him to fail, Marcus realized something. He was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending he didn't hear the engines calling. Tired of living like a ghost in his own life. If Diana wanted a show, he'd give her one. And when she tried to destroy him afterward because she would try, that was certain. At least he'd know he stood up. At least he'd know he tried. Marcus met her eyes, held them. Start the clock. The words hit Diana like a slap. Her smile froze, cracked at the edges. She'd expected collapse, begging, the kind of performance that would let her maintain control of the narrative. Not this. Not calm certainty from a man who should have been destroyed 3 years ago. The workshop smelled like oil and failure. The marine engine dominated the room, chrome and steel catching overhead lights, German precision meeting American ambition. 9 weeks of broken promises made metal. Marcus approached slowly, placed both hands flat against the engine block, closed his eyes. His father had taught him this. Samuel Cole, 36 years at Ford Motor Company, the man who could diagnose any engine by sound alone. Every machine has a heartbeat, son. Most people hear noise, but if you listen, really listen, the engine will tell you exactly what's wrong. Marcus listened, felt the vibration through his palms, the subtle wrongness that everyone else had missed because they were looking at screens instead of feeling the machine. Because they trusted instruments more than instinct. Because they'd never been taught to hear the way Samuel Cole had taught his children to hear. There, the stutter at 2400 RPM, the hesitation every 3 seconds, the cascade of micro-failures propagating through 47 interconnected systems. The crowd pressed against the glass walls, watching, recording, waiting for him to fail. Isaiah slipped in through the back entrance, 16 years old. 6'2", his mother's eyes in his grandfather's hands. He'd been crying. Marcus could see the tear tracks even though Isaiah had tried to wipe them away. Their eyes met across the room. Marcus saw 3 years of questions in his son's face. 3 years of watching his father disappear into invisibility. 3 years of not understanding why. Now was the moment to show him why. Marcus spoke without opening his eyes, his voice carrying across the workshop. There, 2400 RPM, every 3 seconds. You hear that stutter? Graham Foster stood at his diagnostic station, checked his monitors. The readings show normal operation. Marcus opened his eyes. Your readings are wrong. That's part of the problem. He pulled out his notebook, worn leather, his father's handwriting mixed with his own. 40 years of engine wisdom compressed into 240 pages. The diagnostic software is calibrated for American standards, but this engine was built in Stuttgart, German engineering, metric precision. Your instruments are looking for the wrong symptoms. Diana laughed, sharp, designed to cut. A janitor telling MIT engineers their instruments are wrong. This is priceless. But Marcus was already showing them the math. His handwriting cramped but precise in the margins around his father's 40-year-old notes about Ford assembly line issues. The fuel injection system is German, calibrated to bar units, precision to hundredths of a millimeter. But your control unit is American. It reads PSI, expects looser tolerances. He pointed to the calculations, numbers that made Graham lean forward despite himself. The fuel rail pressure sensor reads 3.5 bar. Your software converts that to 50.76 psi, but rounds to 50.8. That's a 0.07% error. Graham started to object. Marcus kept talking. Insignificant by itself, but this engine has 47 interconnected systems. Each one compounds the error. By the time signals reach the main computer, you've got cascading failures. Dr. Eleanor Thorne stood up. The movement drew every eye in the room. Her voice carried the weight of 40 years evaluating engineers who thought they were smarter than they were. How long before thermal overload? Marcus met her gaze. Something passed between them. Recognition of shared language, shared understanding. 12 minutes, maybe 11. The accumulated errors create a feedback loop the cooling system can't handle. The engine shuts itself down to prevent damage. That's exactly what's been happening, Graham admitted, his voice reluctant. 11 minutes 47 seconds every single time. Diana's smile tightened at the edges. Her control of the narrative was slipping. The custodian wasn't fumbling, wasn't lost, was speaking with quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly what he was talking about. She tried to regain ground. So you've identified the problem. Congratulations. But any idiot can point at something and say it's broken. Can you actually fix it? Marcus reached into his cart. Under the cleaning supplies and trash bags, he pulled out a component. Brushed aluminum, size of a hockey puck. This, Diana stared. That's a $50 part. $58. It's a metric to Imperial Bridge adapter. He held it up so the cameras could see. Instead of reprogramming the entire control system or replacing German components with American ones, we add a translator. The adapter converts metric output into readings the American software can process accurately. The implications hit the room like a wave. 300 people doing the math, 9 weeks, 67 failures, $3.8 million. All of it potentially solved by a $58 part that a janitor had figured out in 2 weeks of listening. Diana's voice rose, losing its careful control. You're telling me that a $58 part could have solved a problem that's cost millions? Marcus's response was simple, direct. The kind of truth that cut through engineering degrees and corporate hierarchies and every assumption people made about who could solve problems. Complicated problems don't always need complicated answers. Sometimes you just need to help two systems understand each other. He paused, let the weight of what came next settle. My father used to say that. The room went quiet. Marcus began working. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just muscle memory from 10,000 repairs, 10,000 diagnostics, 10,000 problems solved in Detroit garages and his own shop, and 100 places that had never appreciated what they were witnessing. The installation took 14 minutes. Marcus's hands moved with practiced precision through steps he'd mapped out in his notebook over 2 weeks of midnight observation. Remove the problematic sensor housing, install the adapter, recalibrate the connection points, test the signal flow. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. Buzzed again. Marcus glanced down. Isaiah. "I'm here. Back row. You got this, Dad." Marcus's hands wanted to shake. He didn't let them. Nia's voice in his memory, 3 years dead, but still the loudest thing in his head. Show him who his father is. Show him what his grandfather built. Show him that talent doesn't die just because the world stops seeing it. When Marcus stepped back, his hands were steady. His breathing was calm, but inside his heart pounded like war drums. This was it. 3 years of silence leading to this moment. Nia's promise, Samuel's legacy, everything compressed into the next few minutes while an engine either ran or failed. Ready for testing. The workshop fell silent. 300 people holding their breath, cameras recording, live stream viewers hitting 120,000 and climbing. Diana checked the clock on the wall. 8:47 p.m., 73 minutes early. "You're cutting it close, Janitor." Marcus nodded to Graham. "Start it." Graham looked at Diana. She waved impatiently. His hand moved to the ignition. The engine roared to life. Marcus closed his eyes, listened with his father's ears. With 36 years of training that no classroom could teach, the stutter was gone. The desperate fighting rhythm that had plagued the machine for 9 weeks had been replaced by something smooth, harmonious. The sound of a heart finally beating correctly. Diagnostic screens flickered. Red warnings disappeared one by one, replaced by green indicators that made the engineering team gasp audibly. "Temperature stable," Graham reported, his voice shaking. "Pressure optimal. Fuel mixture perfect." The clock ticked. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The engine purred like a satisfied predator. 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. Diana's confidence began cracking. Her smile became rigid, forced, the professional mask she wore starting to slip. 11 minutes. The room held its collective breath. This was the moment every previous test had ended. The thermal overload, the emergency shutdown, the failure that had consumed 9 weeks and $3.8 million. 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Someone in the crowd whimpered. The tension had become physical. Pressing against glass walls, compressing lungs. 11 minutes, 45 seconds. Diana grabbed the edge of a table. Her knuckles went white. 11 minutes, 50 seconds, 11 minutes, 55 seconds, 11 minutes, 58 seconds, 11 minutes, 59 seconds, 12 minutes. The engine kept running. 12 minutes, 15 seconds, 12 minutes, 30 seconds, 13 minutes. The room exploded. Engineers shouted at each other. Employees cheered. Someone started crying. The live stream comments scrolled so fast they became a blur of exclamation points and disbelief and questions about how a janitor had just solved what MIT couldn't. But Marcus Cole didn't celebrate. He stood beside the engine, one hand resting on its warm surface, feeling the steady heartbeat of a machine that had finally found its voice. After 3 years of silence, after 3 years of invisibility, after 3 years of pretending he wasn't the man his father had trained him to be, Marcus had spoken, and the world had listened. Harrison Blackwell rose from his chair. 70 years old, $4 billion, a lifetime of watching men succeed and fail. He began to clap, slow at first, deliberate, then faster. The room joined him. 300 people applauding a janitor who'd just done the impossible, who'd proved that credentials weren't knowledge, that degrees weren't wisdom, that sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the person who sees most clearly. Marcus didn't move. His hand stayed on the engine's surface, the metal warm beneath his palm, alive in a way it hadn't been for 9 weeks. He'd given it language, given it the ability to speak to systems that had been listening but couldn't understand. Just like his father had done 1,000 times. In garages nobody remembered. for people who never learned Samuel Cole's name. Dr. Eleanor Thorne walked through the crowd. The applause quieted as people sensed something important about to happen. She stopped in front of Marcus, studied his face with eyes that had evaluated engineers for 4 decades. "Where did you train?" "My father's garage, Detroit, 1987 to 2011. No formal education. Community college, 2 years, couldn't afford to finish." Dr. Thorne nodded slowly, recognition settling into her expression like sediment finding bottom. "Your father was Samuel Cole, Ford Motor Company, 36 years. Marcus's heart stopped. "How do you know that?" "Because I was a young engineer in 1987 when a team from Boeing consulted with Ford on a joint project. Turbine guidance system interference with a new engine design. We had a problem that stumped everyone for 6 months." She paused, let the weight of history settle. "Your father solved it in 4 hours." The room had gone completely silent. Even the live stream comments stopped scrolling. 150,000 people waiting for what came next. "He should have been running that company," Dr. Thorne continued. "Instead, they never even learned his name, never promoted him, never gave him the recognition he'd earned." Marcus felt his throat tighten. His father had never told him that story, had never mentioned Boeing or guidance systems or being the smartest person in a room that refused to see him. "He never told me." "He wouldn't have. Men like your father don't boast. They just do the work and hope someone notices." Dr. Thorne extended her hand. "Someone noticed, Marcus. 40 years too late for your father, but not too late for you." Behind them, Diana Sterling slipped quietly toward the exit. The hunter had become prey. The woman who terrorized 300 employees was attempting escape while their attention focused elsewhere. She didn't make it. "Ms. Sterling," Harrison Blackwell's voice stopped her cold. "We need to discuss the terms of our continued partnership." Diana turned. Professional mask struggling to reassemble itself. "Of course, Mr. Blackwell. I'll have my assistant schedule. Now." The word carried the weight of $82 million. "We discuss now." The crowd parted as Blackwell walked toward Diana. His presence filled the space the way gravity fills a room. Invisible but absolute. "For 9 weeks, your company has failed to deliver what you promised. Tonight, a janitor succeeded where your experts failed. This raises questions about leadership, about judgment, about whether Sterling Dynamics deserves our investment." Diana's face went pale beneath carefully applied makeup. "Mr. Blackwell, I can explain. You will explain. To your board, to your shareholders, to everyone who watched tonight's performance." He glanced at Marcus. "But first you will apologize." The room held its breath. "Apologize to Mr. Cole, publicly, now." Diana Sterling, CEO, owner, queen of everything she surveyed, looked at Marcus Cole, the janitor she'd mocked, the invisible man she'd tried to destroy, the master mechanic who'd just saved her company. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her hands trembled at her sides. Every camera in the room captured this moment. The live stream viewers had hit 200,000. This would be replayed, analyzed, remembered. She whispered, "I'm sorry." "Louder," Blackwell said. "The cameras are recording." Diana closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had broken behind the cold exterior. Not remorse, not yet, but the first crack in armor she'd spent 30 years forging. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. I was wrong about you." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, thought about Nia's final words, about promises made to dying wives, about finding your way back when the path seemed impossible. "Apology accepted," he said quietly. "Now let's talk about how we're going to make this engine even better." The workshop clock read 12:47 a.m., 73 minutes ahead of schedule. Marcus Cole, janitor, had just become Marcus Cole, the man who heard engines speak. The threat. The crowd began dispersing. Engineering teams gathered around diagnostic stations, reviewing data, trying to understand how they'd missed something so obvious. Executives pulled out phones to brief board members who'd wake up to news their company had been saved by custodial staff. Marcus stood alone by the engine, one hand still resting on its surface. The vibration against his palm felt like a heartbeat, steady, strong, the way things were supposed to feel when they worked correctly, when all the parts aligned and the systems understood each other. Isaiah appeared at his side, 16 years old, 6'2", his mother's eyes in his grandfather's hands. He'd been crying. Marcus could see the tear tracks even though Isaiah had tried to wipe them away. "Dad?" The word came out broken. Marcus pulled his son into a hug, felt Isaiah's shoulders shake. 3 years of watching his father disappear into invisibility. 3 years of not understanding why the man who used to fix anything was pushing a mop for minimum wage. 3 years of questions Isaiah had been too afraid to ask. Now he knew. "You never told me," Isaiah whispered. "About Grandpa. About what you could do. Didn't seem to matter anymore." "It matters, Dad. It's always mattered." Marcus held his son tighter. Over Isaiah's shoulder he saw Dr. Thorne watching them. She nodded once, a gesture of respect that carried more weight than any words. His phone buzzed. Marcus almost ignored it, but the number on the screen made his blood turn cold. Unknown. 2:17 a.m. He'd learned to recognize the pattern. Collection agencies called from blocked numbers. Debt collectors used software that rotated caller IDs. But something about this call felt different, deliberate, timed. Marcus answered. Put the phone to his ear, kept his other arm around Isaiah. "Hello." Silence. Then Diana Sterling's voice, cold, stripped of the false warmth she'd performed for cameras. "Hello, Marcus?" He should have hung up, should have blocked the number, should have known that Diana Sterling wouldn't accept defeat gracefully, that powerful people don't lose, they just choose when to stop playing. "Ms. Sterling, I wanted to call and congratulate you personally. Quite a performance tonight." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Pause. Calculated. The sound of someone shuffling papers or pretending to. "I've been doing some research since I left the workshop. Fascinating things come up when you know where to look." Marcus's stomach dropped. Isaiah pulled back, saw the expression on his father's face, mouthed the words. "Who is it?" Marcus shook his head. "Not now." Diana continued. "For instance, I found an interesting bankruptcy filing from 3 years ago. Cole's Engine Works, liquidated assets totaling $210,000, debts totaling $290,000. Her voice dripped false sympathy. "Medical bills mostly, your wife, cancer, I'm sorry for your loss." Marcus gripped the phone tighter. "That's none of your business. Everything about my employees is my business, Marcus, especially employees who humiliate me in front of investors worth $82 million. The false sympathy vanished, replaced by ice. "I also found some interesting records from your time at Cole's Engine Works. Customer complaints, safety violations, a lawsuit that was settled out of court for $40,000. Marcus's world tilted. The lawsuit. 3 years old, a customer who'd blamed Marcus for engine problems caused by his own negligence. Who'd sued when Marcus refused to fix them for free. Settled because fighting would have cost more than paying. Even though it was fraud, even though Marcus had done nothing wrong. That lawsuit was fraudulent. The customer, I don't care what it was. I care what it looks like. And it looks like Marcus Cole, genius janitor, has a history of running a problematic business into the ground." She let that sink in. Marcus could hear the smile in her voice, the satisfaction of someone who'd found ammunition. "How do you think that story will play in the media? Disgraced former mechanic tricks investors with lucky fix." "I can see the headlines now." "What do you want?" "I want you to resign tomorrow morning. Before Blackwell has a chance to make any decisions about the partnership, you'll write a letter admitting you got lucky tonight, that you're not qualified for any engineering position, that you're grateful for the opportunity to return to your maintenance duties." Diana paused. Let the threat build. "And if you refuse, then I destroy you. Not just fire you, destroy you. I'll make sure every media outlet in the country knows about your failed business, your dead wife. Your pathetic attempts to relive past glory. Her voice dropped to something almost gentle, almost human, the cruelty more cutting for its softness. I'll sue you for unauthorized access to proprietary equipment. I'll have my lawyers drag you through court until you can't afford to eat, and that scholarship your son's been counting on, the full ride to Michigan State. Marcus's hand went numb. He almost dropped the phone. One call to the athletic director, one mention of a pending criminal investigation into corporate espionage. You think they're going to risk their reputation on the son of a janitor facing federal charges? The words hit like bullets, each one finding soft tissue, tearing through the brief moment of hope Marcus had allowed himself to feel. You think tonight was a victory, Marcus, but you forgot the most important rule of corporate America. People like me don't lose. We just choose when to stop playing. The line went dead. Marcus stood in the darkness of the workshop, phone still pressed to his ear, Diana's threat echoing in the silence. Isaiah touched his arm. Dad, what's wrong? Marcus looked at his son, saw Nia in his eyes, saw Samuel in his hands, saw 3 generations of talent the world had tried to bury under poverty and prejudice. And the absolute conviction that some people were meant to lead and others were meant to follow. Nothing, Marcus lied. Nothing's wrong. But everything was wrong. Diana Sterling had just declared war, and Marcus had 8 hours to decide whether to surrender or fight back. The Alliance. Marcus didn't sleep. Dawn crept through his apartment blinds while he sat at the kitchen table. Samuel's notebook open in front of him. Nia's photograph watching from the shelf. The bankruptcy records Diana mentioned were public. The lawsuit, fraudulent as it was, had left paper trails. She would twist it, make it evidence of incompetence, feed it to journalists who'd write headlines about janitors playing engineer. By noon, Marcus's moment of triumph would become a cautionary tale about overreach and delusion, unless he moved first. His phone showed 6:15 a.m., a new text message. Unknown number, but the area code was local. Mr. Cole, Harrison Blackwell requests private meeting, 7:30 a.m., conference room B, come alone. Marcus stared at the message. Blackwell, the billionaire who'd stood and applauded, who'd forced Diana to apologize, who held $82 million over Sterling Dynamics like a sword. He could be an ally or another predator. Marcus had stopped trusting his ability to tell the difference 3 years ago, when the world revealed itself as a place where good people died in pain and bad people prospered. But he was out of options. Marcus showered, put on the same clothes from yesterday. He owned 3 pairs of work pants, 4 shirts, all variations of the same practical uniform. His knee ached from standing on concrete for 2 hours while fixing the engine. The Civic's check engine light had been on for 3 months. Ironic for a master mechanic who couldn't afford to fix his own vehicle. Sterling Dynamics' parking lot was empty at 7 a.m. Marcus's keycard still worked. Diana hadn't moved that fast. He rode the elevator to the 38th floor, watched the numbers climb, remembered every night he'd ridden this same elevator pushing a maintenance cart while executives ignored his existence. Conference room B was smaller than the auditorium where he'd performed for 300 people, intimate. 2 chairs facing each other across a table. Harrison Blackwell sat in one, hands folded, expression unreadable. Marcus took the other chair, waited. His father had taught him that silence could be its own form of communication. Blackwell spoke first. She will try to destroy you. You know this. Yes, sir. And yet you challenged her anyway, in front of her employees, in front of her investors, in front of the entire world. Marcus considered his answer, decided on truth. It was all he had left. I was tired of being invisible. Something that might have been a smile touched Blackwell's weathered face. Either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Blackwell's laugh was unexpected, warm, genuine. The sound of a man who'd spent 70 years evaluating people and recognized honesty when he heard it. I like you, Mr. Cole. I liked you before last night when I watched security footage of a janitor studying engine blueprints at 2 in the morning. I liked you more when I saw you stand up to a woman who terrifies half of corporate America." He stood, walked to the window overlooking Detroit's industrial sprawl. The morning sun turned his silver hair to platinum. "Your father, Samuel Cole. I knew of him." Time stopped. Marcus's chest tightened around air that suddenly wouldn't move properly through his lungs. "In 1987, I visited Ford's Detroit plant as a young executive, 39 years old, ambitious, building what would become Blackwell Industries." Blackwell turned from the window. His eyes held memories across 4 decades. "There was a problem with the turbine design, something that stumped our joint engineering team for months. Your father solved it in one afternoon." Marcus found his voice, barely. "He never mentioned that. He refused to take credit, told our team the solution was obvious if you listened to the engine." Blackwell's expression softened with something like regret. "I tried to hire him, offered 3 times his Ford salary to come to Tennessee, led our engine development program. He would have become wealthy, respected, given the recognition he deserved." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. His father, Samuel Cole, offered a fortune and refused it. Why? He said his family was in Detroit, said he couldn't leave them. Blackwell met Marcus's eyes. Couldn't leave his son. The truth settled like weight on Marcus's shoulders. All those years watching his father work thankless hours at Ford. All those nights assuming Samuel had simply accepted his invisible fate. But he hadn't accepted it. He'd chosen it. Chosen Marcus. Chosen family over fortune, recognition over reward. His son's presence over his own advancement. "I didn't know," Marcus whispered. "Of course you didn't. Men like your father don't burden their children with sacrifices made. They simply make them and move forward." Blackwell placed one hand on Marcus's shoulder, the gesture carrying the weight of 2 men who'd both watched talent die unrecognized. "He was a great man, your father. The world's failure to acknowledge him was tragedy, but perhaps his son will receive the recognition he deserved." Marcus felt tears threatening, forced them back. "What are you offering?" "Chief engineer position. 152,000 starting salary, full benefits, stock options. You'll oversee all engine development projects. Report directly to whoever replaces Diana Sterling as CEO." The numbers didn't seem real. Marcus made $21,800 as a janitor. $152,000 was 7 years of his current salary. Was Isaiah's college tuition covered? Was debt paid? Was breathing room Marcus hadn't felt since Nia got sick? "There's a condition," Blackwell continued. "Diana Sterling will fight this. She'll use everything she can find to discredit you. The bankruptcy, the lawsuit. She'll make your life hell for as long as she has power." "I know. Can you handle that?" Marcus thought about Nia. 8 months of fighting cancer that doctors said would kill her in 3. 8 months of proving that will mattered even when biology didn't cooperate. 8 months of showing Marcus what real courage looked like. If she'd fought that hard, he could fight Diana Sterling. "Yes, sir. I can handle it." Blackwell nodded. "Good, because I'm about to make things very difficult for Ms. Sterling. And I need you to be ready for whatever comes next, the bait." Marcus left Blackwell's office at 8 a.m. His phone buzzed immediately. Text from Graham Foster. "We need to talk about Diana, about what she's planning. Can you meet coffee shop on 5th Street, 9 a.m. Marcus stared at the message. Graham, the lead engineer who'd stood behind Diana last night, looking uncomfortable but complicit, sympathetic but too weak to intervene when it mattered. Now he wanted to help. Everything in Marcus's survival instinct screamed trap. Diana didn't make mistakes, didn't leave loose ends. If Graham was reaching out, it was because Diana wanted him to. But Marcus was out of options. Blackwell had offered a path forward. Diana had promised destruction. Graham might be the only person who knew what Diana was actually planning. Marcus typed back, "I'll be there." The coffee shop was busy with morning rush. Marcus arrived early, claimed a table near the window, watched people move through ordinary lives. Mothers with strollers, businessmen on phones, teenagers laughing at something on their screens. None of them knew who he was. After 12 hours of trending worldwide, Marcus was just another middle-aged black man drinking bad coffee. He appreciated the anonymity. It felt like armor. Graham arrived at 9 sharp. He looked worse than last night, bags under his eyes, clothes wrinkled, the kind of exhaustion that came from not sleeping and not being able to stop thinking. He sat down across from Marcus without ordering. Just sat, stared at his hands on the table. "She called you, didn't she?" Graham said finally. "Last night, after everyone left." Marcus said nothing, waited. "I know, because that's what she does. Let you have your victory for a few hours, then she calls, reminds you that she owns everything, that your moment of triumph is really just her choosing when to destroy you." Graham's voice carried 3 years of exhaustion, of bending under pressure that never let up. "She did it to me. 3 years ago, I had a gambling problem, lost almost everything. Retirement savings, my daughter's college fund, nearly lost my house." The confession came faster now, like Graham had been holding a trap for years and the pressure finally cracked the container. "Diana found out. She paid off my debts, $340,000, didn't ask for repayment, just said I owed her loyalty, that I'd work 16-hour days and never push back on anything she decided. Keep my mouth shut when I saw things that weren't right." Marcus's chest tightened. This was why Graham had looked uncomfortable last night. Why he'd started to object when Diana attacked Marcus, then fallen silent when she snapped at him. He wasn't weak. He was trapped. "That's why you work so hard. Why you never stand up to her. She owns me, Marcus. Same way she'll own you if you let her." Bitterness crept into Graham's voice, sharp and corrosive. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know what you're facing. Want you to understand that fighting Diana Sterling means fighting someone who has infinite resources and no conscience about using them." Marcus looked around the coffee shop, at the ordinary people living ordinary lives, wondered what it felt like to not carry debt like chains, to not wake up every morning calculating whether you could afford groceries. "There has to be something," Marcus said. "Something she's hiding, something that could level the playing field." Graham was quiet so long Marcus thought he'd pushed too hard, then carefully testing the weight of words before releasing them. "There might be one thing." Marcus leaned forward. "Diana keeps files. Private files on her personal server in her office, emails, financial records, project reports, the real ones, not the sanitized versions she shows the board." Graham's voice dropped even lower. "If someone could access that server, they'd find proof. Years of falsified data, hidden failures, government contracts with inflated success rates, enough to destroy her if it went public." Marcus's mind raced ahead. How would someone access it? Her office, 38th floor, servers in a locked cabinet behind her desk, password changes weekly, but she keeps a backup written in her day planner, 3rd drawer left side. Graham hesitated. "You'd need to come early, 6:45 before security shift change. Use your maintenance keycard. It still has access to executive offices." The trap was obvious now. Too obvious, too detailed, too perfect. If you get caught, she'll press charges. Corporate espionage, industrial theft, you'll go to prison. Graham's warning carried the weight of someone who'd considered and rejected this same path. "But if you succeed, you'll have evidence that could save you. Maybe save all of us." Marcus stared at his reflection in the darkened television screen behind the counter. Saw a man who'd spent 3 years hiding in plain sight, 3 years safe, 3 years dying slowly in maintenance uniform. Diana's threat would come whether he fought back or surrendered. At least fighting meant going down with dignity instead of drowning in sins. "How do I access the server?" Graham gave him instructions. Detailed, precise. The kind of specificity that came from someone who'd thought this through carefully. Mapped every step. Understood exactly what needed to happen. They talked for 17 minutes. When Graham left, Marcus sat with his phone in hand, wondering if he'd just found an ally or walked into a trap his exhausted brain was too tired to recognize. His phone buzzed. Text from Isaiah. "Dad, are you okay? You left early. What's happening?" Marcus typed back. Everything's fine, going to handle some business, love you. 3 dots appeared. Love you too, Dad, be careful. Marcus finished his coffee, watched morning turn into day through the window. Thought about Nia, about promises, about whether some battles were worth fighting even when you knew you'd probably lose. He had until 6:45 a.m. tomorrow. 12 hours to decide whether to walk into Diana Sterling's trap or disappear back into invisibility. The choice had already been made. Marcus just had to be brave enough to follow through. The office. 6:47 a.m. Marcus stood outside Diana Sterling's office door. His maintenance keycard felt like a weapon in his hand, or evidence, depending on how the next 10 minutes played out. The 38th floor stretched empty in both directions. Security shift change happened at 7. Graham had been specific about that. 15 minutes of vulnerability when the night guard clocked out and the day guard wasn't yet at his station. 15 minutes when the cameras still recorded but nobody was watching the feeds in real time. Marcus swiped his card. The lock beeped green. He pushed through, closed the door behind him. Diana's office smelled like her perfume. Sharp undertones. The scent of someone who'd fought every day to prove she belonged in rooms that didn't want her. Marcus understood that fight, had lived it differently, but understood. The desk dominated the space. Polished mahogany. The cabinet behind it sat exactly where Graham had described, locked, waiting. Marcus moved fast, no time for hesitation, no room for second thoughts. His father's voice in his memory, measure twice, cut once, but when it's time to cut, don't hesitate. Third drawer, left side. The day planner sat exactly where Graham promised, leather-bound, Diana's initials embossed in gold. He flipped through pages of meetings and appointments and notes written in precise handwriting that revealed someone who planned every hour, controlled every variable, never left anything to chance. There, last Monday's page, a string of numbers and letters in the margin, casual enough that someone glancing wouldn't recognize it as a password, but clear enough that Diana could find it when needed. Marcus memorized the sequence, replaced the planner, turned to the cabinet, entered the password. The lock clicked open. Inside, a small server hummed quietly, surrounded by external hard drives and backup systems. Everything Diana wanted to keep hidden from the world, stored in a locked box in a locked office in a building she owned. Marcus pulled the flash drive from his pocket. He'd bought it at a 24-hour convenience store for $12. His checking account now down to $83 until next week's paycheck that might never come. He plugged it into the server. The download dialog appeared. Estimated time 7 minutes. Progress bar crept forward. 3%, 7%, 12%. Each percentage felt like an hour. Each second stretched into eternity while Marcus stood exposed in Diana's office, committing a crime that would send him to prison if discovered. Betting everything on the chance that Graham Foster was helping instead of setting a trap. 23%, 31%, 41%. Footsteps in the hallway. Marcus froze. His blood turned to ice water in his veins. The footsteps grew louder, heels clicking against concrete with the rhythm he recognized from 3 years of avoiding it during his cleaning rounds. The door opened. Diana Sterling walked in. Time stopped. Diana stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand, staring at Marcus with an expression that moved through surprise toward something colder, more calculated. Behind him, the computer showed 58%. The flash drive was visible. The open cabinet was visible. Marcus's guilt was visible in every line of his body. Well, Diana's voice carried that particular tone of someone who'd just won a game they'd been playing 3 moves ahead. This is unexpected. Marcus's mind raced through impossible scenarios. Lie about why he was here. Claim he'd come to clean. Pretend the download was something innocent. Every option crumbled under the weight of obvious guilt. Diana closed the door behind her. The lock clicked with the finality of a cell door. I came in early to prepare for my meeting with Mr. Blackwell. Wanted to review some files, get my story straight. She walked toward him, each step measured, deliberate. Instead, I find you in my office, stealing from my private server. 66%, 73%. Marcus found his voice. I'm not stealing. This is evidence. Evidence of what exactly? Falsified reports, hidden failures, defense contracts you've been lying about for years. His hands clenched at his sides. Graham told me everything. Diana's laugh was sharp enough to cut. Graham Foster told you about my private files. She shook her head, genuine amusement mixing with cruelty. Oh, Marcus, sweet, stupid Marcus. 81%, 89%. Graham Foster works for me, has worked for me ever since I paid off his gambling debts 3 years ago. The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. Graham's sympathetic voice on the phone, his detailed instructions, his warnings about getting caught, all of it performance, all of it trap. You think I don't know everything that happens in my company? Diana's smile was arctic. Graham called me the moment you left the coffee shop, told me your whole plan. I've been waiting since 5 a.m. for you to walk through that door. 95%. Marcus looked at the screen, then at Diana. Understanding crashed through his exhaustion. She'd let him come, let him break in, let him plug the flash drive in and start downloading. Because she didn't need to stop him. She needed proof he'd committed a crime. You set me up. I gave you rope. You chose to hang yourself. Diana pressed a button on her phone. Security is already on the way. Corporate espionage, industrial theft, unauthorized access to protected systems. My lawyers will make sure you spend the next 10 years in prison. Her finger moved toward the call button. Unless you'd like to discuss alternatives. 99%. Marcus felt the weight of 3 years' survival instincts screaming at him. This was the moment to surrender, to beg, to take whatever deal Diana offered, because prison would destroy him worse than invisibility ever had, would destroy Isaiah, would mean breaking every promise Marcus had made to Nia. But somewhere underneath the fear, underneath the exhaustion, a different voice spoke. Nia's voice, but also his own, the part of himself he'd buried 3 years ago when the world became too heavy to carry. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Diana the screen, text conversation with Harrison Blackwell's assistant. Meeting confirmed, 7:30 a.m., subject financial integrity concerns per section 14.3. Diana's finger paused. What is this? Harrison Blackwell, waiting downstairs right now. Conference room B. Marcus's voice came out steady, surprising them both. You think you can threaten me with prison, lady? I held my wife's hand while she died. Watched her waste away for 8 months, sold everything I'd built just to buy her a few more weeks. 100%. Download complete. Marcus took a step toward her. After she was gone, I didn't care about anything, not my reputation, not my future, not my life. There's nothing you can do to me worse than what I've already survived. Diana's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to Marcus, her carefully constructed facade beginning to crumble. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus's voice carried 3 years of silence finally breaking. You'll call security. Have me arrested. I'll tell them exactly what's on that server. Every falsified report, every hidden failure, every lie you've told to investors and government agencies. He gestured to his phone. And while you're explaining to police why your janitor was in your office, I'll be explaining to Harrison Blackwell why his $82 million investment is about to become front-page news. Marcus met her eyes. He's waiting for me right now, downstairs, in the lobby. The cavalry. Diana stared at the phone like it was a weapon pointed at her chest, her mind racing. Marcus could see it in the micro-expressions flickering across her face, calculating, searching for escape routes, finding them all blocked. You're insane, she whispered. You're throwing away your life for nothing. No, I'm throwing away nothing for something. For the first time in 3 years, I'm fighting back. Marcus pulled the flash drive from the server, held it up so Diana could see. Win or lose, that's worth everything I've got left. Silence filled the office. The server hummed. Diana's phone trembled in her hand. She tried one last time, voice losing its careful control. There has to be a deal, something you want. Money, position, I'll make you head of the entire engineering division, 7 figures, stock options. There's nothing you can give me that I want. Diana's armor shattered completely. Her voice rose, carrying years of fights and sacrifices and battles won through sheer refusal to lose. You think you're better than me? I built this company from nothing. I fought every day against men who told me I couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't. I clawed my way to the top while people like you were content to push mops and complain about how unfair life is. Her hands shook. Tears threatened at the corners of eyes that had learned not to cry decades ago. I became exactly what they expected me to be. A tyrant, someone they couldn't ignore or dismiss or steal from. And it worked. I'm standing in a corner office on the 38th floor of a building with my name on it. She pointed at Marcus. Where are you standing? The vulnerability lasted only seconds before she caught herself. Rebuilt the walls, but Marcus had seen it. The woman underneath the armor. The one who'd started out fighting for respect and somewhere along the way started fighting just to fight. Forgot why it mattered. Confused dominance with dignity. The door burst open. Security guards rushed in, followed by a man in an expensive suit, chief legal counsel. Ms. Sterling, we received an alert that your server was accessed remotely. He stopped when he saw Marcus, saw the open cabinet, saw guilt written in every detail of the scene. Diana recovered fast, professional mask snapping back into place. A trespasser. He broke into my office and was attempting to steal proprietary data. Arrest him immediately. The guards moved toward Marcus, their hands reached for his arms. Wait! Everyone turned. Harrison Blackwell stood in the doorway. Behind him, Dr. Eleanor Thorne. Behind her, more members of Sterling Dynamics' legal team, looking confused and concerned. Blackwell walked into the office slowly. His 70 years carried with the dignity of someone who'd spent 5 decades building empires and knew exactly when one was crumbling. Everything concerning Sterling Dynamics concerns me. I have $82 million invested in this company. That gives me certain rights. He looked at Marcus. Mr. Cole, would you like to explain? Marcus's throat was dry. This was the moment. The point where he either committed fully or backed down, where 3 years of silence either ended or extended forever. Ms. Sterling has been falsifying reports, defense contracts with inflated success rates, government projects with hidden failures, financial records that don't match what she's been telling investors. His voice gained strength. The proof is on that server. I was downloading it when she walked in. Diana laughed, sharp, desperate. He has no proof. He's a disgruntled employee making wild accusations. Marcus pointed at the flash drive in his hand. The proof is right here. Everyone looked at the small device, at the progress bar showing 100% complete. Blackwell nodded to Dr. Thorne. Check it. Diana's voice cracked. Don't touch that. That's private property. You have no right. Section 14.3 of our investment agreement grants me access to any and all financial records upon reasonable suspicion of material misrepresentation. Blackwell's voice carried absolute authority. Consider this reasonable suspicion, the files, Doctor. Thorne pulled the flash drive from Marcus's hand, plugged it into her laptop. The room fell silent while she scrolled through files. Her expression shifted, curiosity becoming concern, becoming something approaching horror. Harrison! She looked up. You need to see this. For several minutes, the only sound was clicking and scrolling. Marcus watched Diana's face cycle through emotions. Defiance, fear, calculation, resignation. She was trapped, and Diana Sterling had never learned how to surrender gracefully. Dr. Thorne's voice was clinical, stripping emotion from devastating facts. The Nakamura contract, reported success rate 94%, actual success rate 61%, 33 percentage points of falsified data. Blackwell leaned over the laptop. His face remained neutral, but something dark moved behind his eyes. Government Defense Project. 3 complete failures never reported to oversight agencies. Safety violations that should have triggered immediate shutdown. He turned to Diana. Is this accurate? Diana said nothing. Her jaw clenched. Her hands had stopped shaking. That scared Marcus more than the trembling had. She was calculating again, planning her next move. Ms. Sterling, is this accurate? Her voice came out flat. I want my lawyer. Blackwell nodded to the security guards. Please escort Ms. Sterling to a conference room. She is not to leave the building until our legal team has completed a full review of these documents. The guards hesitated, looking at Diana for direction. Old habits, old power structures. Now! Blackwell's single word carried more weight than years of Diana's threats. They took her arms. Diana hissed at Marcus as they led her toward the door. This isn't over. You have no idea what I can do, no idea who I know. This isn't over. Marcus watched her go, felt something like pity mixing with satisfaction. She'd built an empire on fear and manipulation, had crushed anyone who challenged her. But she'd forgotten the most important rule. Empires built on lies eventually collapsed under their own weight. The door closed. Blackwell exhaled slowly, looking every day of his 70 years. Mr. Cole, I owe you an apology. Marcus blinked. For what? For not seeing what was in front of me. I've been investing in companies for 50 years. I pride myself on reading people, understanding character, knowing who to trust. He shook his head. I trusted Diana Sterling, believed her reports, ignored warning signs because the numbers looked good. Blackwell extended his hand. You saw what I missed. A janitor with community college education saw what a billionaire with 50 years of experience missed. That takes courage and integrity. Dr. Thorne closed her laptop. The falsified data extends across at least 8 major contracts. Conservative estimate of financial exposure, $340 million in potential lawsuits, regulatory fines, and contract cancellations. She paused. But the engineering work itself, the actual designs and innovations, those are sound. With proper management, this company could still be salvageable. Blackwell nodded. Then we'll need new management. He looked at Marcus. I don't suppose you'd be interested in a job. The offer. The room spun slightly. Exhaustion, adrenaline crash, whiplash from janitor to job offer in less than 12 hours. You were a janitor, Blackwell interrupted. Last night you became the man who saved my $82 million investment. This morning you became the man who exposed fraud that could have destroyed my reputation. Blackwell's expression softened. I think we can find something more appropriate than pushing a mop. Marcus thought about Nia, about promises, about finding his way back to who he used to be before cancer and bankruptcy. And 3 years of silence erased the man he'd worked 30 years to become. I don't know what to say. Dr. Thorne spoke up. Say yes. Harrison is offering you a chance to use your gift, to work with engines, with technology, with people who will actually listen to what you have to say. She paused, choosing words carefully. Don't let pride or fear or whatever else is running through your head stop you from accepting what you've earned. Marcus looked around Diana's office, at the locked cabinet, at the private server, at everything she'd built through manipulation and fear and the absolute conviction that power was the only thing that mattered. Then he thought about his father, Samuel Cole, 36 years at Ford, never promoted, never recognized, who'd been offered 3 times his salary to go to Tennessee and refused because his son was in Detroit, who died believing his knowledge would disappear with him. I'll take a job, but not as an executive. I don't know how to run departments or manage budgets. Marcus met Blackwell's eyes. What I know is engines. Let me do what I'm good at. What do you propose but chief engineer? I'll oversee technical work on the Nakamura contract. Let someone else handle management. I'll handle the engines. The title was realistic, achievable, not the kind of leap that would make people question his credentials or whisper about unearned promotions. Chief engineer meant working with his hands, solving problems, doing what he'd spent 30 years learning to do. Blackwell nodded. Deal. Starting salary $152,000. We'll discuss benefits and long-term compensation later. He extended his hand again. Welcome to Sterling Dynamics, Mr. Cole, or whatever we're about to rename this company. Marcus shook. His hands were steady now, his breathing had calmed, but inside his heart pounded with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Dr. Thorne smiled, genuine warmth breaking through professional reserve. Go home, Marcus. Sleep. When you wake up, your life will be different. 3 months later. Marcus stood in the center of the Advanced Diagnostics Center, watched his team bring an engine to life. The machine hummed with the smooth rhythm of perfect synchronization. Every system aligned, every component speaking the same language. Diagnostic screens glowed green across parameters that had taken 11 months to optimize. Temperature stable, called a voice from across the workshop. Zero deviation. Marcus had built this team from nothing, found them in places nobody else looked, the AutoZone counter in Columbus. The truck stops along I-75, the high school auto shops where talented kids were told they weren't college material. He'd given them the same chance Samuel Cole had never gotten. The same chance Marcus almost didn't get, the chance to prove that talent mattered more than credentials. The Nakamura flagship model represented everything Marcus had built in 12 months. Not just an engine, a philosophy. A proof that talent lived in unexpected places if you bothered to look. Marcus nodded. Shut it down. We're ready for delivery. The engine settled into silence. His team erupted in celebration. High fives and relieved laughter from people who'd worked impossible hours to achieve something extraordinary. His office sat on the workshop floor, not the 38th floor executive suite Dr. Thorne had offered when she became CEO. Marcus needed proximity to engines, to the heartbeat of machines that still called to him the way they'd called to his father. The desk was cluttered with blueprints and technical manuals. Nia's photograph smiled from its frame. Beside it, Samuel's picture from 1987, both of them frozen in moments when they'd believed effort mattered more than credentials. Marcus's phone buzzed, Dr. Thorne's name on the screen. Eleanor! Her voice carried news. Diana Sterling was released from prison this morning. The words landed like stones in still water. 12 months. Diana had served 12 months of a 30-month sentence, early release for good behavior and cooperation with prosecutors. Her testimony had helped build cases against a dozen other executives involved in corporate fraud. Where is she now? Detroit, staying with a cousin while she figures out her next steps. Dr. Thorne paused. She asked to see you. Marcus looked at Nia's photograph. His wife had believed in second chances even when the world proved that faith unwarranted, had believed people could change if given the chance. But she'd also been realistic. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and offering someone a second chance didn't obligate you to accept whatever they did with it. What do you think I should do? That's entirely up to you. She has no power over this company anymore, no influence, no way to harm you or anyone else. If you never want to see her again, no one would blame you. Thorne chose her next words carefully. But you're not the kind of man who holds grudges. It's one of the things that makes you good at what you do. You see people as they could be, not just as they've been. Marcus thought about the team he'd built, about giving chances to people who wouldn't get them anywhere else. The question was whether Diana Sterling deserved the same generosity, whether someone who'd weaponized power so viciously could actually become someone different. Tell her I'll meet her tomorrow, somewhere public. The coffee shop. The coffee shop was busy with morning rush. Marcus arrived early, claimed a table near the window, watched people move through ordinary lives. Mothers with strollers, businessmen on phones, teenagers laughing at something on their screens. None of them knew who he was. After a year of media attention and industry recognition, Marcus had learned to appreciate moments when he was just another middle-aged man drinking bad coffee. The door opened. Diana Sterling walked in. She looked different, older, thinner. The designer suits were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a worn jacket that had seen better years. No makeup, no jewelry, no visible trace of the woman who'd commanded a billion-dollar empire with the kind of presence that made rooms fall silent. But her walk still carried purpose. Her eyes still held intelligence. Prison hadn't broken her, had changed her, yes, but broken was something different. She spotted Marcus, walked toward him slowly, each step testing whether he'd stand up and leave. Marcus stayed seated, waited. His father had taught him that silence could be its own form of power. Diana reached the table. Her voice came out quieter than Marcus remembered. "Thank you for meeting me." "Sit down." She sat. Up close, Marcus could see lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 12 months ago. Gray streaks in hair she'd always kept perfectly colored. The weight of consequences etched into features that had spent decades hiding vulnerability. "You look good," Diana said. "Successful agrees with you." Marcus studied her. The compliment felt genuine but also strategic, as if Diana was testing which approach might work. "You look tired." Her laugh was dry, brittle. "Prison will do that, although honestly the exhaustion started long before they locked me up. I just didn't know how to admit it." She fidgeted with a napkin, tearing small pieces from the corner. A nervous habit completely at odds with the commanding presence she'd projected in her corporate life. Marcus recognized it as a sign. Diana Sterling, who terrorized 300 employees, was genuinely nervous sitting across from the janitor she'd tried to destroy. "I've been thinking about what I'm going to say to you for 12 months, Diana continued. Rehearsing speeches, preparing arguments, trying to find the perfect words. She looked up at him. "And now that I'm sitting here, none of it seems to matter." Marcus waited. Let her find her own way through whatever she'd come to say. "You don't need my explanations. Don't need my excuses. You've moved on, built something incredible, helped people I would have dismissed without a second thought." Her expression shifted, bitterness creeping in at the edges. "While I lost everything, the company, the reputation, 12 months in a cell thinking about all the ways I destroyed my own life." The vulnerability lasted only seconds before defensiveness reasserted itself. Diana's voice hardened slightly. "But you know what part of me still thinks I was right? That the world doesn't reward kindness or fairness. That if I hadn't been ruthless, I'd never have built Sterling Dynamics in the first place." Marcus felt something shift. This wasn't the transformed, repentant Diana he'd half expected. This was someone still wrestling with who she'd been. Still defending choices she intellectually knew were wrong but emotionally couldn't quite surrender. It was more honest than any prepared speech would have been. More real. And paradoxically more hopeful. Because people who truly changed didn't pretend the change was easy or complete. "What do you want, Diana?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the shredded napkin in her hands. "Honestly, I don't know. For the first time in my life, I have no plan, no strategy, no goal to chase. I'm 55 years old with a criminal record and no skills beyond exploiting people and manipulating numbers." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm terrified, Marcus. More terrified than I've ever been. And I think that might be a good thing. Because fear means I'm finally paying attention to consequences instead of just charging ahead and assuming I'm invincible." Marcus recognized the fear, had lived with it for 3 years after Nia died. The terror of not knowing who you were when everything you'd built had been stripped away. When the identity you'd constructed over decades collapsed and left you standing in the rubble wondering what came next. "What are you going to do now?" Diana's laugh was self-deprecating. "I've been applying for jobs. Unsurprisingly, convicted felons with fraud on their records aren't in high demand. My Harvard MBA doesn't mean much when it comes with a criminal background check." She paused, then added with careful casualness, "I was hoping maybe Blackwell Engineering might have something. Even entry level. I'm not asking for special treatment, just no." The word cut through her sentence like a blade. Diana flinched. Hurt flashed across her face before she could hide it. Marcus leaned forward, his voice firm but not unkind. You need to earn your way back, not through me, not through connections. If I hired you now, it wouldn't mean anything. You'd always wonder if it was charity, if you had actually changed or just found another person to manipulate into giving you what you want. Diana's eyes filled with tears she was too proud to let fall. So what am I supposed to do? Figure it out like everyone else does. Apply for jobs, take rejection, keep trying. When you've proven you can work honestly for someone else, work hard without expecting special treatment, then maybe we talk. His tone softened slightly. Nia believed in second chances, but she also believed you earn them, not by asking for them, by proving through actions that you're not the same person who hurt people. Marcus stood, placed a $20 bill on the table for his coffee. Good luck, Diana. He walked out without looking back. The legacy. 6 months later, Marcus reviewed applications for the Samuel Cole Memorial Scholarship, a program he'd established with $140,000 of his salary. Blackwell had matched with $1 million grant. The fund provided full tuition and living expenses for non-traditional students pursuing engineering degrees. 3,000 applications for 50 spots. Mechanics, factory workers, truck drivers. People with passion but without the pedigree that traditional programs demanded. Marcus was reading application number 2412 when a name made him stop. Diana Sterling. His first instinct was to disqualify her immediately. Second instinct was to read the application before deciding. Third instinct was to check whether she'd received any preferential treatment in the selection process. Dr. Thorne walked into his office holding her own copy of the application. You've seen it. Just now. She applied 3 months ago. Went through the same evaluation process as everyone else. Same screening criteria, same scoring rubric. Dr. Thorne sat across from Marcus. She was selected because she demonstrated the qualities we look for. Humility, willingness to learn, genuine commitment to becoming better. Marcus flipped through Diana's application. The essay was honest to the point of painful. Described 12 months in prison, 6 months working minimum wage at an AutoZone parts counter. Enrollment in community college night classes where she'd earned straight A's for 2 semesters. Volunteer work teaching basic car maintenance to single mothers at a community center. Pro bono. No publicity. The essay's final paragraph hit harder than Marcus expected. I spent 30 years climbing. When I reached the top, I had nothing. No family, no real friends, no legacy worth leaving. Prison taught me that real value comes from building, not manipulating. I'll never be the engineer I once pretended to manage. But I can learn to be an honest one. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the chance to prove I can contribute something real. Marcus set down the application, looked at Dr. Thorne. She didn't mention knowing me, didn't use my name anywhere. I noticed that too. She applied as Diana Sterling, former CEO convicted of fraud. Didn't hide it, didn't minimize it, just owned it and moved forward. Marcus thought about 87 job applications Diana must have submitted over 6 months. 87 rejections. Finally landing at AutoZone selling spark plugs and oil filters to mechanics. Working that job while taking night classes. Volunteering her time. Building something new from absolute bottom. That was earning it. That was the kind of change Nia would have recognized as real. What's your recommendation? She earned the spot. Question is whether you're comfortable with it. Marcus looked at his father's photograph. Samuel Cole had been passed over for promotions he'd earned because people couldn't see past his lack of credentials. Had died unrecognized because the world valued pedigree over competence. The Samuel Cole Memorial Scholarship existed to prove that wrong, to give chances to people who'd been overlooked or dismissed or judged by their backgrounds instead of their potential. Diana Sterling had been all those things and worse, but she'd also spent 6 months proving she could change, could work honestly, could earn her place without manipulation or shortcuts. If Marcus rejected her now, he'd be doing exactly what he'd fought against. Judging someone by their past instead of their demonstrated potential. If she earned it, she earned it. accept her application. The new beginning. The graduation ceremony filled Blackwell Engineering's main auditorium. 50 fellows walking across the stage. Mechanics, drivers, factory workers, all transformed into certified engineers ready to contribute to industries that had previously rejected them. Diana's name was called midway through. She walked across the stage in a simple black dress, no ceremony, treated exactly like the 49 others. Shook Dr. Thorne's hand, received her certificate. The moment was brief, professional, unremarkable except for what it represented. A woman who'd once commanded boardrooms now graduating alongside gas station mechanics and truck drivers, all of them equals in achievement. After the ceremony, Diana found Marcus outside. Her voice carried something new, not the desperate fear from the coffee shop, not the defensive anger from prison, but quiet confidence that came from earning something honestly. I got a job offer, small company in Cleveland, design engines for agricultural equipment, not glamorous but honest work. Congratulations. I came to say thank you, not just for the scholarship, for everything, for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself, for believing I could change when I didn't believe it. Marcus looked at her, really looked. The woman standing before him had spent 2 years rebuilding herself from absolute bottom, had worked minimum wage, had endured rejection, had proven through actions instead of words that change was possible if you were willing to do the work. You did the hard work, I just maintained standards. Diana smiled, genuine warmth replacing the predatory calculation that had defined her for 30 years. For 55 years I chased power and wealth. At the end I had nothing real, nothing meaningful, nothing that would survive me. She gestured toward the ceremony. But this, what you've built, this will last forever. Every person you teach will teach someone else. Every life you change will change other lives. That's real legacy. Marcus thought about his father, about Nia, about the long journey from invisibility to recognition and back to something simpler and more meaningful than either. That's what Nia taught me. The measure of a life isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give away. Diana nodded, extended her hand. Marcus shook it, feeling the calluses that hadn't been there 2 years ago, the physical evidence of honest work. Take care of yourself, Diana. Remember what you learned. I will. She walked toward the parking lot, toward Cleveland and agricultural equipment and a life built on competence instead of manipulation. Marcus watched her go, feeling something like pride mixing with relief. Diana Sterling hadn't been saved. Salvation wasn't something one person could give another, but she'd been given a chance to save herself, and she'd taken it. The garage. Isaiah appeared at Marcus's side, 18 years old now, MIT sophomore, top of his engineering class, home for winter break. That was Diana Sterling, wasn't it? Yeah. You really gave her a scholarship. Marcus put his arm around his son. She earned it, same as everyone else. They walked toward the parking lot together. The December air was cold, clean, the kind of cold that made everything feel sharper, more real. Dad, I've been thinking about Grandpa's garage. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Samuel's garage, abandoned for 11 years. The place where everything started, where a father taught his son to listen to engines, where 3 generations of knowledge had been compressed into 240 pages of notebook. What about it? I found the deed in Mom's old files. You still own it. The building's been sitting empty since Grandpa died. Isaiah pulled out his phone, showed Marcus photos he'd taken last week. The garage exterior, faded paint, broken windows. But the bones were still good, the structure sound. I think we should restore it. Turn it into a community workshop. Free diagnostics for people who can't afford mechanics, teaching kids like Grandpa taught you. Marcus stopped walking, looked at the photos, saw his father's dream waiting to be resurrected. Continue the legacy, Isaiah said quietly. Marcus pulled his son into a hug. Yeah, let's do that. 6 months later, the restored garage sat on the corner of Woodward and 8 Mile. Fresh paint, new windows, The sign above the door read Samuel Cole Memorial Workshop, free diagnostics and training. Marcus stood in the center of the workspace, surrounded by tools that had belonged to his father, mixed with new equipment donated by Blackwell Engineering. The smell of oil and possibility filled the air. 12 young people ages 14 to 19 worked at stations throughout the garage, learning to diagnose engines, to listen the way Samuel had taught Marcus to listen, to understand that machines spoke if you knew their language. Isaiah taught at the front station, 18 years old, already better than Marcus had been at 25, showing a 14-year-old girl how to identify a timing belt issue by sound alone. "Close your eyes," Isaiah instructed. "Every engine has a heartbeat, you just have to know how to hear it." The girl listened, her eyes squeezed shut, concentration written across her young face. Then her eyes opened, bright with discovery. "I hear it, the skip in the rhythm." Isaiah smiled, the same smile Nia used to have when she was proud of something. "Now you're listening like an engineer." Marcus watched from across the garage, felt Nia's presence in the moment, felt Samuel's approval in the air. 3 generations meeting in a workshop that refused to let knowledge die. His phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Thorne. "Board meeting tomorrow. They want to discuss expanding the scholarship to 100 students next year. Harrison's adding another $2 million. Thoughts?" Marcus typed back, "Let's do it." He looked around the garage, at the young faces learning, at Isaiah teaching, at the legacy multiplying exactly the way it was supposed to. This was what Nia had meant when she made him promise to find his way back. Not back to who he'd been before she died, but forward to who he was supposed to become. Not invisible, not desperate for recognition, just present, useful, teaching. The 14-year-old girl successfully diagnosed her first engine problem. Isaiah high-fived her. She grinned so wide Marcus thought her face might split. That moment, that single moment of discovery, that was worth more than any salary, any title, any recognition the world could offer. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened the photo gallery, found the picture of Samuel Young Marcus and a disassembled engine from 1987. 3 generations in one photograph. Now a 4th generation was learning in the same garage where it all began. Marcus whispered to the photograph, "We did it, Dad. Your knowledge didn't die. It's multiplying." Outside, the sun set over Detroit, the city that had made the Cole family, the city that had broken them, the city that was watching them rebuild. Above the garage, the sign glowed in the fading light, Samuel Cole Memorial Workshop. Knowledge doesn't die. It multiplies. Inside, engines hummed. Young voices asked questions. Isaiah answered with patience. Samuel would have recognized. And Marcus Cole, 52 years old. Chief engineer, teacher, father, stood in his father's garage and finally understood what legacy meant. Not what you build, not what you accumulate, not even what you achieve. Legacy is every person you teach, every life you change, every door you open that someone else walks through. The garage would outlive Marcus, the scholarship would outlive him, the knowledge would outlive them all. And that was enough, that was everything.